Hi, everybody. Nice to meeting you. It's a very, I'm honored, actually. I don't know how can I express my, all the thanks to you, dear Ermitrud, for all the opportunity to having my book both in English and in German. It is really very big. And now, in that geopolitical situation, my book is also very good that the Turkish people and Kurdish people, European people knows that we are not a nation that we want to war. They force us to do that when we are kids. Every kid wants to have a pen and a book. Every kid, when we grows up, we have the same. Nobody is, criminal too, even here in European. We have the same condition. But unfortunately, the situation, the geopolitical, the environment, the family situation, the economical, political situation did that when I was 12 and a half in a village in Kurdistan, Iran, in the Sakaz province, they came and they told my father that if Amineh is not forced marriage, we want to excuse her, murder me. But my dad, the first time I saw his eyes full of tears, he was, totally helpless, totally oppressed, quiet. He didn't know how could he express his frustration. He said that, I want to go to jail, not you. I said, no, father, you have 6 kids. I want to be Peschmerga. That is why my book also is Amineh, not bigger than a Kalashnikov. It is very dramatically, but this is actually my life and millions Kurdish kids in all the part of the Kurdistan, Iran, Iraq, Turkey. I am just a very, very small, as I wrote, I am just one of, million of women and girls and boys in Kurdistan and in many other countries, unfortunately. So I was born in a very, very poor family in Kurdistan, Iran. I was 4 years old when that was 1979. That was revelation. The Shah fall, Khomeini, the Islam's dictatorship came, and immediately he had the fatwa. Fatwa means that against the Kurdistan. He did the invasion of the whole Kurdistan, Iran. And a lot of people, they killed, as now Erdogan do it in Rojava. And he also came with Kalashnikov, murdered. There is picture, Iranian journalist, he never could show that when the pictures were showing in Kurdistan, he was in European country. He couldn't show those pictures because in the city of Sanandaj and Marivan. And that was a big demonstration, manifestation. I read after that, I was 8, 9 years and listened to Komala, the Peschmerga. I joined after Kurdistan was invaded and I was 13 years old. So the history of the Kurds is not started with when I was born. It started for 100 years that they kept the European country after the World War I. That was, Syrian was the mandate of French, and Iraq was the mandate of Britain. So that was an agreement. The Kurds should have our own country. But in France, the agreement was that now we should not divide the Middle East. We should give the state like Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syrian, and even that was the Armenian. But the Armenian became after the Russian, the Soviet Union fall. So there is also Kurdish there. They had assimilated. So the history of the regression, oppressing, it is not started with my life, actually. because you have my book, you can read about my life. I don't want to take your time about how my life was in Kurdistan, because I am from a very, very poor family. If we had bread for breakfast, but not cheese, the same. If we had cheese, we had not bread. So that is why when I was very young, I started with my brothers, work for the more rich in our city, in our village. That was the aristocrat. The aristocrat names Aga in Turkish too. And we worked for them, and my father and mother get instead, you know, fruit, flour, and you know, lepe. I don't know in English actually. It's lepe. That is a lot of beans, a lot of, you know, like things you can eat. Potato, tomato, dried. So we worked sometimes we get up from home at 5. We came back at 9 o'clock. We were all of us, you know, 6, 7, 8, my sisters and brothers. We worked for them. So the life was very, very hard. And when Peschmerga came, and they talked about the injustice, the Komala socialists, they talked about that we are not just workers and women, we are also Kurds. As a Kurdish, for example, we had not any hospital. So when we were sick, we went to grandmom. She had a lot of natural tea, you know. And I am very allergic. I remember that when a bee bit me, my body was swollen. I was close to die. So my grandmom, she said, told my mom, you have to wash Amineh with cold water and salt. That was, you remember that, that was, for example, if we had ache in our throat, that was some honey and milk. So that natural, actually, because that was now, a lot of, my cousin, she died because when get birth, that was, she bled a lot. She was very young, she died. So that was, even now, in many parts of Kurdistan, even now, today, there is now any medical or you know, apotheke and nurses, maybe 1 per 10,000 people. So that is the situation in all the part of Kurdistan. They have not, yes, they have not allowed, even today, Iran is a very rich country, but they didn't allow to have, you know, develop our region. The whole my life started with injustice, hunger, death, you know. We are actually survivors, we Kurdish girls and boys, but that time we are just survivors. We just had a life between death and survive. So I'm saying even today, in the Swedish parliament, the Erdogan wants to have me back. So it is still the struggle is between survive, because I defend the Kurdish right, I defend the Turkish people's right even. I am, as a socialist, I am not nationalist. For me, the Kurdish people, because it's in my blood. 2 days ago when I told in the parliament, I said when I came to Sweden, in my blood that was oppression, in my blood that pulls oppression, because when I came to Sweden in 1992, the doctor said that something is wrong with you. I didn't know why, I was so scared. And the 6th time I was there, my uncle Rahman, he was Peschmerga too. He came, I said, uncle, you have to come with me. I am very scared, I don't know why I have some problem. They said that in your blood, there is something, we don't know what is that. I remind that I was affected by Saddam chemical attack. Unfortunately, that was not just 5,000 Kurds in Halabja, but when my party, Komala, they condemned Saddam, but Saddam, he the week after bombed us, and 79 of my comrades died. And 3 days after I came to the place, and I immediately affected. So many years had gone, 1988, yeah. And until 92, that was still in my blood, oppressed in my blood. That is why I struggle. Yes, and even more than 100,000, both in Irani Kurdistan, there's Sardasht and a lot of other in the border to Iraq, they affected by the chemical attacks. So even today, they have the consequences. The kids, when they get birth, they are handicapped. A lot of men, they can have, a kid. A lot of women, they don't, because of those effects. There is not doctors, none research about that. Many, many years took before doctors came and people could come. So the Kurds, I mean, we have in our blood, unfortunately, the oppression. For example, we can, in Kurdistan, Iran, and Turkey, and Syrians, still we can go to public school and learn our own language. So I was 25 years old when I was by myself in Sweden. I learned my mother tongue to write and read. 25 years old. But I could do that even if I didn't went to school. I just went 1 year during the Shah. I was 4 years. And then I started everything in Komala. The Peschmerga was a school for many things. I also criticized them in my book for the patriarchy, everything, but with the glasses today, I look at them. But with that glass I had, though, that was like Germany and Sweden, because the Muslim men became socialists, and the socialists really said to us, you can be Peschmerga, but now forced marriage, now child marriage, and now even if you are under 15, non-Peschmerga because you are kid. So they teach us about our rights as women, as the Kurds, and also we get a lot of school, of course. So very short, that was the history of my life, my family, so you can by yourself imagine how the situation was. And that is why when I became Peschmerga, that was not the Komal, and I wanted to, by myself, I hate weapon, that is why I am the only parliamentarian in the Swedish parliament. I am against to send weapon to a country. I know that weapon kills people. I know that my own uncle, he became in bites when the bomb fell in our village. He and 2 guys too. I was 8 years old. I mentioned in my book when they killed him. So we find my dear uncle's fingers and toe 10 days after, 2 weeks after his death. We were kids and we looked for his fingers. We knew that he was older than the 2 others. So, I'm sorry, but I loved my uncle so much. When we were very poor, we had not food, so he killed the birds, and the mom made soup of the birds for our kids because we had nothing, no meat sometimes. I became actually 29 years ago vegetarian because I said that I was vegetarian when I was kid. Many Kurds, they said that it's impossible. My mom said that now you have meat, you can buy meat, why you don't eat? So his sorrow was I have not eat meat when she met me. So you understand that the class perspective and the ethnical perspective, but also economical perspective, but like a girl, even my brother, they were oppressed, but I was extra oppressed by my own family. From the mosque, the minaret, they told the whole time you should keep their daughters in home. But I was a daughter in our region. I worked outside because my father, he loved me, actually. I was, after 3 sons, I was the fourth kid and a girl. He wanted me to work and help economically. And I decided very, very soon, when I was 6, 7 years, I told my mom, I don't want my dad buy my shoes and my socks. I have very big feet, and they, was broken the whole time. And my dad was angry because we were so many kids, and both mother and father, they were very young when they get married, and they had a lot of children. That is why I started to work. But when I worked like my brother at home, I also helped mom. That was helping mom with my sisters and brothers, make food, make bread, clean. And I never feel that I was a kid, actually, never. That is why, even when I came to Peschmerga, they said that you were very little girl, Amineh, but here you were like 30 years. And in Stockholm, when I came to Sweden, I was 90 probably, almost. But here I was like 50 years old. Because of all the responsibility, you are the older daughter in the family, you have to have the, honor killing, thinking, you have to think about the family's honor, sharaf namus, you understand from Turkey, Kurdish, unfortunately. That is why we women think about that when we are very young, from 6, 7 years old. And the Khomeini came to our village, and we had the zinc water outside our village, outside our home. The Pastaran, Revolutionary Guard, they came and they said that you should put your hijab, and I didn't because I hate them. When they went to, they said that you should not show your arms. I did more, and they came and they beat me, actually. They beat me in my fingers, and they came to my mom. They said that girl, we want to kill her. She does not listen to us. And they forced that we had actually, after 2, 3 months, water inside, because they were so irritated. Men, they were maybe 50 years old, in beards, and they came, and a little girl, I was like 7, 8 years old. So the oppression against women and girls were more and more, even in Kurdistan. In the Kurdish society, we show actually our here. That is a lot of flower clothes like that one. We are not black as the Khomeini wanted, the forced hijab. So it is, to be women and girls in the society, there is honor killing, honor thinking, and the regime's oppression, it is more harder. That is why I also became as I am today. So that, because of the culture of honor crime, it is not just in Kurdistan and in the Middle East. Unfortunately, it is even in Indian, among Jewish people, among atheist people, among a lot of Orthodox, for example, in Serbian, in many other countries in the Eastern European, they have, and among even the gypsies, there is the honor crime. Even we in Sweden have had 150 years ago, but they didn't kill their daughters, but they killed the kid when they had sex without, any marriages. So the honor culture is not the Kurdish, but in European countries, and particularly in Sweden, that is Kurdish women, we are fighting against that. We are, all of the Kurdish, we leftist or liberal, we are against honor crime because we know what we are talking about. So that is very important to mentioning that honor killing and honor culture is not specific for Islam or not specific for the Kurdish. It is in many countries, but when it's developing in countries that religion, Islam is in the ground, of course, when we are 6 years old, we have to, protect ourselves for the bad eyes the men, we carrying the men's sexual, on our shoulders. That is why in Islam is fundamentalism. Otherwise, there is a lot of light Muslim. Before, Shah was a dictatorship, but during his time, that was not so harsh. During Hafiz and others, they were not so harsh against women. So that is why Kurdish women, we have different kind of struggle to, fight, to combat, because it is the patriarchy, the religious, the ethnic oppressing, and our own family too. I mean, actually in many countries they have their own family. In India, I have been in India, in Kerala, it's very, very modern because the Socialist Party has in 25 years governed. It is more modern, but even they have the problem because they have caste problem. For example, if I want to get married to your son and you were in another caste, it is impossible. So it's both the rich people, overclass bourgeois, and the very poor. So that we have the same. Even now in Sweden, according to 4 years ago researchers, we have over 250,000 young boys and girls, they are committing honor crime. And now it must be more because we have got a lot of refugee, and there is unfortunately refugee bring that, like everybody is not like people sitting here. People are, forced marriage. We had, during my 14 years in the parliament, we had more than 10 of them legislations, law we make against honor killing, against child marriage, against female mental, what is names? Mutilation. They cut not just boys, even women in the Pharaoh and the light one and the middle one. There's a lot of those problems. They don't today in Sweden, but they go back to Iraq, to Lebanon, to Africa, for example, they do it. Those problems we have to face. Even in here in your country, there is a lot, but probably they don't talk like we mention in Sweden. We have a lot of Turkish and Kurdish, Arabic girls. They are getting back during the summer and they force marriage. That is why when I came to Sweden, I saw that, I said that I don't accept it. I fought against that because I became Peschmerga. That was not the regime, also the culture we fight it. Why in the modern country in Sweden we should accept? Racism is actually that is to accept that kids from other culture, they are oppressing because of the culture and religion. Racism is not just the white, there's a racism also, the opposite side. Just to be naive and thought that, Amineh's kids, because they are from a culture, they have that mentality, so we allowed them to do that. It is not the justice, it is not the feminism they talk about. And I left party after 25 years membership. I left them because they didn't accept it when I said that you were socialist, how can you allow kids to get married? In Komala, in the mountain, that was not allowed. Why you allowed here? The men in Peschmerga was Muslim men. They became socialists and atheists. They were against that. But in Sweden, socialists, even in your country, I know that. The link, and I studied the leftists in European country. Unfortunately, they allowed. But the leftists in Middle East, now the Turks, now the Kurds, now the Arabs, because I work with many of them, they don't allow it. My position today as a political, I want to just go ahead because we have, there is a lot to talk about, but I hope you read in my book And if you have questions and opinions, you can send to me, of course. But why I became now in the Swedish parliament and all the current situation is also interesting for you. That is because I left the Left Party 2019. They didn't accept. I was interviewed in the Swedish television program 1 hour about your truth. It names my truth. So it is in the Swedish television. That was very hard for me to leave the party when I came to Sweden in 1992. After 6 months, in the 1st May 93, I became a member of the Swedish Left Party. But that time, they were actually socialist. They had an ideology that was socialist. But today, as your socialist parties like ours, they became more liberal. And I had the ideological conflict with them. But the honor killing, child marriage, and this Islamic fundamentalism, I was against all of them. The Left Party criticized me that why I do that, because we have a racist party in the Swedish parliament, we should be silent. And the society in Sweden made so many silent. Now the racist party is the 3rd biggest one. And we had already problem too when we started 2018, that was election. The Left Party's leaders, they didn't want to have me on the list, but the members of the party, they wanted to have me on the list. So actually I came in, I have more than all of them in the Stockholm district, more personal vote. So that is why I left the party, but I kept my place because I have support among the Swedish people. It is not just I want to stay there. I know that those issues I brought to the parliament one day before yesterday, that was 16 pages in the Express. It's a liberal Express is night news. They asked many people, former president of the parliament, former ministers, liberal socialists, about how they feel about Amineh. And the former president of the parliament, he's a moderate. He says that Amineh was a light from the sky to all of us. She mentioned that what honor crime was, what is also racism, as I mentioned before. Racism is not just be against one of those oppressing. You have to be against all of oppressing, all of discrimination, even if there is from my mother and father, not just from the white people. I mean, that is very important. So you can actually look at the reportage, you can translate in Google Translate. I was surprising and also very respectful because my political, the right wing, they have very good opinion about my struggle. They say that Amineh is socialist, we don't share her economical politic, but her engagement for human rights, for women's rights is very important. So that is from the right wing, not from my side. So that is why my vote also today is very important, because none of those right-wing side or the social democratic liberals, they are majority. That is why I mentioned next. Last year, also in the Swedish parliament, I don't know if you were interested at that, 3 times from summer to November, 3 times the government was going to fall, and I helped them to build again. This is social democratic. So the first time in history, we have a woman, Magdalena Andersson. She's a prime minister. And because she became a prime minister, the Social Democrat needs my vote. Before her, that was the Stefan Löfven, Social Democrat also, and I helped him to keep the power because, of course, I prefer a Social Democratic prime minister, not a moderate, because I know that even if I agree with them in becoming honor crime, but it is not the main issue in politicians. This economic politics is very important, and the values. How do you want to have a society? A society just as a police and jail, or a society there is welfare and school and so on. So that is why when I vote for them, I said that, okay, now it is time to negotiate. So we wrote 9 demands. I had 9 demands. 4 of them, it was about honor killing, to have the law was not so strong. If family, for example, during the summer school is closed, and they are going to Turkey, to Syria, and to many countries, and they take their kids and they force married them. They didn't come back. Every year, hundreds girls and boys, they disappear. And I said that should be forbidden. They are our kids. Why they should get married there? And they took the passport from them. Even here in Germany, you have problem, but they don't talk very loudly. So many kids, they don't come back. And I said that we should forbid that. And now, a family actually from Iraq last year, they took their 17-year-old daughter, and they took from her passport and forced marriage, but she took a phone from a cousin, and she called our ambassador. So we helped her come back, and the family, they are in jail now. So it is very good. It is very good. Sometimes you have to be. So 4 of my demands, that was about those legislation. I just mentioned for you to understand why the problem is so huge, and for me it is in my blood, because I know what means that to be forced marriage, to be child marriage, and have all the oppressing, like migrant kids to migrant families. They are, you know, here, Swedish or Germany's girls and boys, why they should have the lifestyle like worse in their own country. In Istanbul it's a modern, in Damascus it's a modern, in Iraq, but in the suburbs, they are living for 50 years ago, 20 years ago. So that was very important to me, to have those legislations. And for others is one, to the pension when you get retired is a very low for women. And I told the government, you should, the salary for the pension, they are lows is 14,000 crowns. It should be 1,000. And that was one of them. And the other was against religious schools. I am not against religious, but I am against religious schools. Why you brainwashing kids in Islamic schools? The Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the Arab Emirat, and Iran. Those 5 countries build a lot of schools and mosques in Sweden. All of them are Islamist fundamentalism, of course. The Diyanet, Turkish, both mosques and schools. We have a lot. 17 of 25 are Islamist fundamentalist countries. So I had actually that one too, and the Social Democrat accepted. Now, the last government crisis we have had, that was also in November, when the Green Party was together with the Social Democratic, they governed, but suddenly the Green Party, they are so low because it's an election, they are just 3%, and they want to be strong again. They left the government, and the government fall again. So the Social Democrat needs my vote again. And that time, I had been thinking about the Kurdish people and the minorities in Rojava. Because 2 years ago, I come with contact with 58 Kurdish people, most of them from Turkey and Rojava. And they said that we are freedom fighters or sympathy sort of the freedom, but the intelligence in Sweden, they put them terror stemples on those people, and they couldn't get any citizenship or the same benefits. And to having a terror stample, it is very hard. It is harsh, you know, because they are freedom fighters. And I told the government, how can Sweden, European country, the United States, support them in PYG, YPG, YPG, all of those groups, they're fighting against Daesh. How can you support them there, but when they come to our countries, to Germany and Sweden, they are terrorists? I can understand that mathematics. I can't actually. And they don't go to the media because they are very scared. If you are going to media, say that I am a terrorist, affected in the family, in Turkey, in Kurdistan, everywhere. So to me, that was very hard because I also belong to Peschmerga. I said that if they are today, tomorrow is my party in Iran too. So as you know that it does not, in 1 year, Erdogan called me for terrorist. So I said, look, the logical is so false, it's so wrong, it's so awful. How can freedom fighters, women, they actually fight, most of Kobani was free because of Kurdish women fighters. How you can count them as a terrorist? Because the Turkish intelligence wants to. Otherwise, how can Sweden know who is those individuals they are coming? If there is not the Turkish government, they help Sweden and Germany of that. So that is why I became a new agreement with the Social Democrat. I said that you should write, you support all of them, and the members of them are not terrorists. They are sisters and brothers. Now it is a new crisis in the government. Last week, that was a minister, the justice minister, he wants to, the right wings want to resile him, and they need again my voice. And now there is a new geopolitical situation for the whole European. As you know, that the war in Ukraine and Sweden's application for the NATO membership. And Erdogan, that agreement we mentioned, Maria mentioned for you, it is for 7 months ago. So it has nothing with the application to do. 7 months ago, that was in November, my agreement with the government, with the Social Democratic, that was 7 months ago. But every week, I send message, I meet a lot of Social Democrats, I said, please, tell me, are the Kurds terrorists or freedom fighters? If not, why you don't put them from the list? Why? And they said that's a sensitive. In Sweden, we have not, it's true, in Sweden, the minister, we have not minister, you know, we have the government, governmental institutions. They are very free from politicians. But the government also has responsibility. That was not one individual, 2 and 3. That is more than 150 persons. Just since yesterday, 4 men, they contact me. 1 today, 3 yesterday. They says that, I mean, I have been in the Kobani, but now I have lost my, you know, a hand and a finger, I don't know, eye. Yeah? And we do need to stay here, but they says that we are terrorists. So it hurts so much me because I know that those people, they fight not then for themselves. They fight for the whole world. The whole world was scared for Daesh. You remember? Every day in some country, in the European country, that was Daesh attack. But the Kurds now holding 12,000 of the Barbary, 12,000 of them. Remember that just in January, February, when that was uprising in the jail in Hassan K, and they killed 20 women, Peschmerga women, and they took their head. They says that you in Kobani fighted against us. Who was sent the weapon to them? That came a lorry, a big, huge car with weapon from Turkey. The Turkeys helped them against the Kurds. And now the Kurds keep, in the prison, as you know, that their prison is not so very high security. That is, the Daesh can do operation any time, attack again. So why the world use the Kurds when they need them? But when they come to the European country, they are terrorists because Erdogan wants. Each of us in this hall and the whole world knows that Daesh was supported by Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the Arab Emirates. Each of us knows about that. While we are sitting here, they are killing people in the African countries. Yesterday, that was 80 people. 2 days ago, 20 people, they was killed, African Muslim people. Daesh is coming back with support of Turkey. So that is why it's dangerous that Erdogan used that one right now. And he's against me specifically because I support the Kurds in Rojava, Kobani, and even the Kurdish issue in Turkey. That is why he's angry, and I am also thinking that Abdullah Öcalan should be released, all the politicians should be released. Yeah, the last one, it is also the PKK on the list of terror. It had made the Kurdish situation very, very hard. So we should never have a solution as far we have the PKK on the list. Thank you, dear Maria. That is very important, the sisterhood and the solidarity, and also bring knowledges from here and take from there. I have been in the society of Iraq. Unfortunately, honor killing are very, very much there. When, I grew up in Kurdistan, Iran. We have not the same clan structure. There is, a lot of, the clan structure is very hard, especially in the villages. But unfortunately, even in the society, the Kurdish government has not. That is also my criticism. It does not mean that I support the Kurdish struggle, but I am blind for the criticism. I am very, very critical. Even in my book, I mentioned the tribal, the two clans, Barzani and Talabani. They fought the Kurdish society back to 100 years. Believe me, when we were there, hijab and trousers was aib, that was taboo. I remember that I was Peschmerga. We went to go to Suleymaniye or to Baghdad. They said that you have to have skirt, but not trousers. I said I have to have pants. Why today is totally Islamic groups, they pay families, their daughters having hijab. That is not just Iran forces, but what the Kurdish government wants. We don't know what they want to. That is also a very huge problematically in Kurdistan, Iraq, unfortunately, because it's free in soon 30 years. Saddam Hussein also were with power in 36, actually. So dictatorship, it does not mean it is Kurdish or you should fight against patriarchy, religions you have to fight. I know that in Kurdistan we have a lot of enemies, a lot. The whole governments, and the European governments, unfortunately, why they put them PKK on the list of terror, but not Erdogan? Why? It is very, very simple. Why he kill people in Kurdistan, Iraq, in Turkey, in Syria, and he fight against Greece, he fight against Armenia, that was Karabakh, you remember last year, in Libya, and now he says that the aircraft should not go to the air in Greece. That is another NATO countries. So he's not a state terrorism, but the Kurds, they are defend themselves, they are. So I know that despite all the situation, but we should remember that women are a half of the society. We are together with the Peschmerga when we fight. We are the heroes. When we getting back to family, we are not. So why I support the Rojava, they have developed in other way than Iraqi Kurdistan. Their women are very, very strong. Ilham Ahmed is one of them. She's actually, I meet her a lot. She's a chief commandant for the whole political area in all the cantons. And Nasrin, she's also the military commands. Both girls, they are as age as me, actually 2 years younger. I am a member of the parliament of Swedish parliament. I am not a Kurdish parliamentarian, but my background is Kurdish. Nobody can take him, and I am a Kurdish Swedish, but what I know that here is a lot of people, they are also thinking about what happened with the Kurdish question, and suddenly our application for the membership of the NATO, which I am against, absolutely I am against the NATO, not just Swedish membership, I am against NATO. That was during, the Warsaw Pact. They built all the NATO, but Warsaw is gone for decades, but the imperialism wanted to sell weapons. That is why they were, and my opinion is Russian, the Putin, he's a dictatorship. He and Erdogan, they are like sort of brothers, both. They are holding their hands together, put two hands together. Erdogan actually is a person, he bring the message of Putin, that Sweden and Finland shouldn't be member of the NATO, but he used me, the Kurdish, and other people argue, because it's easier to put dirt on the Kurdish people, because a lot of European countries, there is in the United States, they support the Kurds. And we know that even the United States, they don't want to have Russian close to Iran and Russian close to Turkey. And they do everything. Now they are trying even put the Revolutionary Guard in Iran, Basij, paramilitary, that from the list of terror, because of they want to have the Iran oil. So everything is so complicated, but so easy for us from Middle East. We know what is all the mathematics, because that they want to have Iran and Erdogan closer to themselves, but push away Russia. I know that Russia is a dictatorship country, of course. He's a despot, he's a dictatorship, but if the whole world is against him, even the people of Russia is now against, they're not the whole of them against Putin. So Putin is actually strong now, otherwise he could fall. So unfortunately in Sweden, as in your country, in many other countries, suddenly we live 200 years of ally free, 200 years. It is very, very much to, having application for membership, and we get through the law, our law, very strict, restrictive law to send weapons to a country in war, but we did for Ukraine. And now we allowed America and all the NATO, they can come to our Gotland, the island. So all of that, of course, Russia also is aggressive They said that they allowed them. So my fear is that someday, maybe he didn't want to use nuclear weapon. Maybe Putin does. And I think if you listen to me, all my history began from the repression and the racist regime in Iran. I also mentioned that I am very angry and in fear why European countries and the United States want to lift the Basij Pastaran from the terror list. So I start that one. If you like, all of you, go to Swedish Parliament, what Amineh have said and done. I think 90% of my work is international solidarity. Maybe more than 70% of my questions and about workers, women, children, honor crime, all the girls in Iran, Zainab, Zara, Sapida, Satuda, Nigar. Yesterday, for example, I left actually a question about the workers in Iran because they are in jail because just they had some meeting. The Ismail Naqshi and Bakhshi, most of them, they are in jail. So every day I have done something that is about Middle East and particularly Iran. For example, we have a woman, she named Zara. She was a teacher of Kurdish. She get 5 years jail because she teach the Kurdish children in the state of Sanandaj. And I have protested, made many questions, many debates in the parliament. As you mentioned, yeah, but I said that I am just a member of the parliament. I don't sit in the government. If the government, all of the governments in European countries, they betray their own values of human rights, women's rights, and they are business women and men. Our foreign minister, unfortunately, she make business, not politicians. That is why I am very criticized. Even with Turkey, now they are silent. Today we were at the parliament of your government, regional parliament. So they mentioned that the Turkish consulate, they called them, they said that you should not meet Amineh. So they are so much against me. In your country here, we have, that was a terrorist. The guy, he was on the way from Germany and Belgium to go to France to kill, but he's in the jail. In Sweden, we have also the Hamid Nouri, the former killer, mass murder in Iran, about 2-3 weeks. The court actually have the suggestion that he should be in jail for life. What his name? I just forget. Forever, Zindani Abad. What is in German? Yeah, for him. And Iran said that all the oppositions, exactly. And they immediately said that, one of them, I am. We are against Iran, and I made a lot of interview in the Iran International in BBC. And they immediately said that the opposition of Iran, we want to revenge. If they have Hamid Nouri in the Swedish prison, we should also take people. And now they have 2 German young girls and boys, 4 Swedish, I don't know, from Germany. They are coming to Iran and they keep them in the prison to have a business with people's life, That is the Iranian regime. So I know very well, each week I know that people are in jail or people are, executed by Iran. So if the European countries betray our values and principles about women's rights, human rights, I have not the responsible. My responsible was criticized her. And I had I invite more than 4 the UN conveys for Iran The last one is the Ahmed, he came to the Swedish parliament. Actually, in January, I had about Iran. And Mahsi Ali-Nejad, she's a very feminist fighter. She's in my book, a quota. She has 7 million followers from Iran. And Iran is so angry. Last week, I also had a debate article in the Swedish Expressen because I wrote a letter to FIFA. I said that why you are very good, you are against racism, but you are not against gender apartheid in Iran. Because that was a football match between Iran and Lebanon. They allowed some Lebanon women, but not the women of Iran. They were outside the stadium and they beat them with baton and even with tear gas. I don't know in your language. And I said that what is the hypocrisy? If you are against racism, gender racism in Iran, you allowed the guys come to have a football, but not allowed the women to look. Look, last week, that was Mahsi Ali-Nejad and many other very famous feminists in Sweden. So I do a lot. I want to each of us here do here too. That is not just Sweden. The whole European country, they make negotiation with Iran to buy the oil and put the pasta from the, lift the terrorists and put on the Kurdish. That is the problem. So each of us have a responsibility to have pressure on the government, regional and the national government. Do not make business with people's life in other countries. You know?